So I'm fascinated by how many films get released in a year, or used to get released in a year, from major studios that just totally fall through the cracks. And I'm a person who's been voraciously consuming cinema since I was a little kid. I would watch as many movies as I could on TV and on cable, and once I got a VCR, I'd rent them endlessly, and a DVD player and a Blu-ray player and streaming and torrents and you name it. I just consume. And one of my favorite decades for that is the 70s. And I'm not going to say I would ever be so bold as to say I've seen most of the films of the 70s, but when one comes along that has like major stars in it from a major studio, I'm always like, why have I never heard of this? From 1971, Arrow Video has just released one such film entitled UNMAN, WITTERING and ZIGO. Weird title. What does that mean? It means nothing if you haven't seen the movie, and it's just a weird title for a very strange and wonderful film. Wonderful, not in the happy sense, wonderful in the where was this film hiding all my life? This is a British film, as I said, from 1971, directed by John Mackenzie, starring David Hemmings, who many may know from Blow Up, or from Deep Red, or from Barbarella, or from very late period Gladiator, I believe he was in. David Hemmings stars as this young teacher who goes to this all-boys boarding school off in the British countryside, where he is replacing a teacher who, on his first day, he learns that the teacher has recently passed away. He fell off a cliff, as you do. Look, in places where there are cliffs, you might fall off a cliff. So he did. So basically, David Hemmings, I'm not going to tell you the whole story, because I knew nothing going into this. I knew nothing whatsoever other than I knew David Hemmings, early 70s British boarding school. I did not know that this was a Paramount release. I was surprised to see that logo. And again, it's like, this movie was produced by Paramount. Why did I never see this on video or on TV or anything? Hemmings goes to this school. He's young. He's serious. He wants to, teach young minds. And he gets saddled with basically the sweat hogs, the British equivalent of the sweat hogs. Much, much darker sweat hogs, but the sweat hogs nonetheless. And they're just unruly and sassy and arrogant, and he's trying to whip them into shape when they casually drop that they killed their teacher. He's like, if you keep it up, I'm going to keep you after class. And they said, you really shouldn't do that. He's like, why shouldn't I do that? And they're like, well, our last teacher tried to do that, and that's why we killed him. And Hemmings doesn't want to believe this. They're a bunch of kids. But the more time passes, the more he realizes or seriously questions whether they're telling the truth or not. And he really errs on the side that they probably are. So this film is this bizarre, dark, creepy psychological thriller about these kids that seem to be just a bunch of pompous, idiot brats who perhaps have it in them, the ability to just bump off any adults they don't like and get away with it. Is that the truth or not? I'm not going to tell you in this review, but it's this bizarre mental cat and mouse thing that goes on. It's nicely shot, based on a radio play originally, based on a radio play from, I believe, the 50s. And it just goes and goes and gets darker and darker and creepy, and it's mega tense, and it's very simple. And I thought it was really good. This was one of those discoveries where, again, I say, where has this been hiding all my life? Was it a rights thing? I mean, why did this never show up in front of me? It's really, really good. Again, Arrow comes through. So the Arrow transfer looks great. The audio sounds great, or as good as 1971 British audio would sound. And the extras are interesting. So I'm gonna read to you from this little cell sheet that I have here as to what the extras are. You have the original trailer, which is kind of stylish in and of itself, and the trailer does give away that initial conceit of the kids saying that they killed the teacher. You get an image gallery, which is, an average image gallery. You get Unman, Terhu, and Mrs. Ebony featurette with cast members Michael Howe, Michael Cashman, James Ward Roper, and Carolyn Seymour, looking back at the production. So it's the woman who plays David Hemmings' wife in the film, along with some of the now very adult actors who played kids in the original production, and that was very cool and interesting. You get an audio commentary by Sean Hogan and Kim Newman, which is very interesting because they talk about their memories of this film, their memories. They basically fill us in who might not be from England about the British class system and the British boarding school system and how all that works. And basically they keep going back to, how and why these kids are the way they are. That's Kim Newman. If you see Kim Newman's name on anything, it's always worth a look or a listen. A brand new appreciation by critic, broadcaster, and cultural historian Matthew Sweet. And the big one for me here is the original 1958 recording of Giles Cooper's radio play. So you get the original radio play in perfect audio, and it's really interesting. The radio play, I believe, is about an hour and 13 minutes. The film itself is 102 minutes. So it's interesting to see how similar and different they are. Some of it is, overall, it is very, very similar. It is just, it all takes place mostly basically within the classroom in a couple of locations, whereas the film really opens it up to the cliffs and the rocks and aspects of the school and aspects of Hemmings cottage that he's living in, the little town they live in, and all this other stuff. But the radio play is very interesting, and certain characters are very different in it. So I had a good time. I love that they included that. That was really cool. So available now. I'm not going to beat this teacher to I'm not going to push this teacher off the cliff again. I don't know what you want to say. This was very, very good. This is one of the better things I've seen in a while, and this is a keeper to me. This is one I'm going to keep telling friends. Really, it's a weird title, but you really should watch this movie. It's really cool, and it's a nice Sunday afternoon creeper. It is UNMAN, Wittering and ZIGO on Blu-ray from Arrow Home Video.